This is Forged in Wood, the series where I take fine cabinet woods and use them to make reproductions of historical weapons. And this week, I'm looking at the Native American Gunstock War Club. You might not have heard of these, but they are fascinating. Apparently, the Plains Indians were really fascinated by European muskets and the way that the Europeans could fire their weapons and then turn them and use them like clubs to keep fighting. They thought this was brilliant, so they started carving clubs in the shape of musket stocks and carrying them into battle. Or it could be that that's not true at all. It could be that First Nations people were carving these clubs in these exact same shapes for hundreds of years before colonists ever arrived in the New World. Honestly, I don't know which version is true. All I know is that these things are badass, and I'm making one. So this is a story about how you can make a lot of bad assumptions, second guess yourself over and over again, change directions a million times, and then finally just settle in, learn to trust yourself, and pull out a decent project when it's all over with. Here's what happened. I started with this huge piece of walnut crotchwood. I got it from my buddy Alex, and he is totally worth a follow on Instagram. Thanks for the wood, Alex. And the thing about walnut crotchwood in particular is that it has this wild, wavy, swirly grain, which is beautiful, but can make it very difficult to work with. Now, let's stop right here and acknowledge that the phrase walnut crotchwood is inherently hilarious. So, pause the video, make your jokes, get it out of your system so we can get back to work. Okay? Crotchwood. Now, in addition to the grain itself being really wild and unpredictable, this specific piece doesn't have any straight corners or sharp edges on it anywhere. And I've got to square it up if I'm going to work on it. So you can see I've drawn straight lines down the edges, and I'm going to take this thing over to the bandsaw with a wide resaw blade and cut off all of those wavy, uneven parts and get something approaching a flat surface to work from. Now, the bandsaw did a decent job here, but the surface is still pretty uneven, and I don't want to run this piece through my power planer because it's pretty much all end grain and it might just break apart. So instead, I'm going to go to the trusty 4.5 hand plane. Now, I didn't think this was going to work great either, but I was really surprised. The shavings that came off of it were beautiful, and I was able to start working that surface more level very quickly. You can see that wild, swirly grain emerging as I work it down with the hand plane. Once I got it flat and level, I attached my paper template and bandsawed out the shape. And at this point, I realized I just didn't trust the wood. Despite being so big and thick, it felt really lightweight and just fragile in the hand. There's no long grain in this thing, and I thought it was just gonna snap while I was working on it. I decided the best thing to do would be to split it and laminate it with some stronger wood down the middle. So I peeled one cut off the side, and immediately I found these stress fractures or frost breaks in the middle of the wood, and that indeed would have made it very fragile. I filled those in with epoxy and then resawed the whole thing straight in half. The resaw cuts were good, but this piece has such a crazy grain to it that there was a lot of tension stored inside the wood, and as soon as I peeled off my two slices, they immediately went all buckled and wavy on me, and that's something I'm going to have to deal with to get a good glue up. I started by gluing some pieces of sanding belt down to my table saw and using that as a giant reference surface to sand the surfaces mostly flat. Then I cut and laid out my center section out of some strong, pale, beautiful tulip wood that I happened to have on hand, and it was already at the right thickness. While I was assembling the piece, I laid the epoxy on super thick, and when I had the whole thing assembled and put together, I clamped the living snot out of it. This is a difficult glue up, and I wasn't taking any chances. But even with all that clamping pressure, I still couldn't get all the waves crushed out of the wood, so I had to quickly make a couple of wedges and pound them in from the side to close up the last few gaps I had between my laminate layers. I checked the whole thing over, and there were no gaps or problems anywhere. So I waited. And then I waited some more. I left this thing in the clamps for a full 48 hours because I was forcing the wood into a position it did not want to go in, and I wanted it to have plenty of time to get used to its new shape. Once it came out of the clamps, the piece felt much more solid and strong, but it was also just this giant, ugly block of resin and wood. I have a long way to go on this project. Before I do anything else, I need to thin this piece out and shape it. And a monster job like this calls for monster tools. So I broke out my huge, gnarly farrier's rasp and went to work on it. And it was too slow. So I took it over to the belt sander and threw on an aggressive 60 grit belt and went to work with that. And it was also way too slow. So finally, I broke out my angle grinder with an aggressive flap wheel disc. Now we're cooking with gas. This aggressive and flexible tool let me work down the thickness of the piece fast, get rid of a bunch of waste that I didn't need, and then start roughing in the curves and bevels that would turn this thing from a block of wood into a nicely shaped weapon. Once I had the basic roughing completed, I took it back over to the belt sander and started smoothing and flattening all the damage I had done with the flap disc. Oh, and I also noticed that it was crooked. It was extremely crooked. So I stayed at the sander until I had that part straightened out and everything nice and true. While I was there, I got creative with the different parts of the belt sander and started to get my curves flowing and looking fair from one part of the weapon to another. And then, even after all the work I had done, I still wasn't totally sure the best way to shape this piece of wood. So I grabbed a woodworker's rasp and went at it with that for a little while. Then I switched to a sanding stick, and that let me refine things a little bit, but I was just unhappy with the results. I could remove waste this way, but I wasn't getting the kind of clean lines and sharp, crisp bevels that would make this thing look really elegant and deadly when it was done. The tools I was using just weren't getting me there. So I went back to basics, broke out the edge tools that I really like to work with, and finally, I started seeing some good results. I leveled all the straight, flat sections with a hand plane and got beautiful, perfect lines from the bottom all the way up to the top, including the edges and the faces. Then I broke out my spoke shave, and that allowed me to get long bevel sections and smooth curves into and out of all the different transitions of the piece. Seeing the long, perfect shavings curling off this tool just brought a huge smile to my face, especially as I was seeing clear, perfect grain emerging underneath the tool and really nice, sharp distinctions between the different sections. And now the piece was coming into focus, but it was obviously still, a little bit boring. It needed a little bit more flair. So I saw some places where I could cut out curves, transitions, and interesting shapes. I roughed these out with hand tools like a back saw and a chisel. Then I took them back over to the belt sander and smoothed out the work that I had done. As the shape emerged, I just kept adding details wherever they felt right. At this point, there was no more plan. I was just acting on instinct, going by feeling, what it looked like and what it felt like in my hands. This has been a long project already, but now I was finally starting to trust myself. And the whole thing was coming beautifully into focus. Once the shape came together, I wanted to add some of the celestial details that the Native Americans put on their own weapons. These were serious weapons of war, but Native Americans would decorate these with comets and shooting stars and starbursts and all sorts of beautiful details. I had to get that into my own piece. So I found some good pieces of brass rod and started laying out details like this shooting star. And of course, I started with compass and dividers, and I measured everything super carefully, and I just hated what I came up with. So I threw the tools away, laid the pieces out on the stock, and just nudged them around until they just looked good to my eye. It was a better guide for what looked good than any fancy measuring equipment I've got in the shop. And once I had the design figured out, I traced the pieces, drilled the holes, glued in my brass slugs, sanded and leveled everything smooth. On the opposite side of the stock, I cut off an old shell casing and used that as the centerpiece for this starburst pattern. I thought adding a shell to a rifle stock just made the most sense, and I'm really happy with the way the starburst came out. Once I had all that brass leveled and integrated into the wood, it was time for a finish. And then, I don't know, I got to the point towards the end here where I liked the piece so much, and I thought it was coming out so well, that I wanted to just keep going. I wanted to take it right over the top and make it amazing. And looking at a lot of old examples, they had these incredible arrowhead-shaped blades coming right out of the crook in the club. And they were completely deadly looking and also beautiful. And I thought, man, mine has got to have that. I have to have that final detail. But what am I going to do? Make a blade out of wood? Come on. It would look stupid. It would be flimsy. That's not going to get the job done. It's not good enough. I need a real knife blade on this thing. And listen, I blacksmith a little bit, but I'm not a bladesmith. That's a completely different skill set. I need somebody serious. I need a specialist on this thing. I want one of the great bladesmiths of YouTube to do this. Somebody like Walter Sorrells or Green Beetle. Green Beetle is my favorite knife maker on YouTube, and you should check him out if you haven't yet. I need somebody like him to make this for me and make this piece perfect. But this is where reality comes in. Because, you know, I'm kind of a small channel. And Steve, that's Green Beetle's real name, he's a big channel. He has like hundreds of thousands of subscribers. He's kind of a big deal. I'm not going to be able to get through to him and have him want to collaborate with me. Unless I am. Unless I just emailed him and told him the project, and like an incredibly nice guy, he was like, sure, I'll be happy to do it. Pack it up, send it to Oklahoma. So I did. And he made an incredible folded teardrop Damascus blade, beautifully etched with 2 different alloys, textured at the bottom, beveled and shaped and sharpened and set into the club. It's a work of art. And it just takes my piece to a completely different level and an amazing collaboration. Wait, let me just stop talking. Here, look at it. I mean, look, I'm happy with my own work. I realized my own goal. But what Steve did with this made it something completely different. It's really historically accurate, but then he also brought in the beauty of Damascus. And he also knows how to handle his materials. He made it smooth and perfect on the top, just like a regular knife blade. But down at the bottom, he textured it, just to suggest that chipped stone feeling that you might get from a really old arrowhead. And then he set it really solidly into the stock. It's really a perfect mixture of the 2 forms, and I'm blown away by how it looks. Not only is it beautiful, it also looks legitimately deadly. I mean, you could really kill somebody with this thing. But we've got a better idea. Steve suggested that instead of killing people with it, we auction it off and donate all the profits to St. Jude's Children's Hospital. And I think that is an incredible idea. The auction is live right now, and the link is down in the comments. You can go bid on this thing. It is a no reserve auction. Maybe you'll win it for not a lot of money, and whatever money you pay is gonna go to a really, really good cause. And then Steve's video is live right now. The link is in the description. Go watch him fold and manipulate and etch Damascus steel, bevel it, shape it, install it in this thing, work through all the crazy problems you have when you're trying to make an ambitious and difficult knife. It is no joke, and he makes really good videos. Go watch Steve's video. Go click on the eBay auction. Patreon.com/Rex Kruger. Support DIY independent videos like this one. Go out in your garage and make something amazing. Sorry, I got a little excited there for a second. It's been kind of a week around here. Thanks for watching.